we might as well begin. Jean, are you there? Unmute yourself. Oh, God.
I sent him the email.
Okay, yeah, he is here.
Oh, okay.
And we'll start out with our call to order now at 7:33.
Can you hear me, Nancy?
Yes, Jean.
Oh, okay, thank you.
We're only missing Jen, so we will get started. Did everyone receive the minutes?
Yes.
Does anybody have any changes to the minutes? Guess not. If not, can we have a motion to accept the minutes? I'll give you a couple of minutes to look at the minutes. Everybody okay with them?
I had looked at them earlier and I approved. I think
Okay.
we're okay.
Can we have a motion to approve? Approve the minutes? That was you. Are you making that motion, Jean?
Okay, I'll make it because nobody else is.
Okay.
I approve the minutes of September 23rd.
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Okay, thank you. Now that's out of the way. Another little, it's out of our order. However, I don't want to forget to tell you guys that we have each of us have received these intriguing letters. They all went to the town hall and they said, what are we going to do with them? And I said, why don't you mail them to me and I will see what they are and ask the historical commissioners how they would like to proceed. If you'd like to come here to my house to pick them up, or if I could open them and tell you what they are. They're all identical. And they are from a gentleman named Joe Sarah, who has written their handwritten letters. And he writes to me, and I'm sure that they're all the same, basically. I am writing to you in your respected capacity of the Historical Commission. My name is Joe Sarah. I live in the community. During November 2020, Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide are participating in a campaign to deliver a special something or other of the Watchtower to all community leaders and government officials, both locally and nationally. Your personal copy is enclosed. So it can also be downloaded. I will send you the link. And if you would like to have your own personal copy of the letter that Mr. Sarah has probably painstakingly handwritten, let me know and we can work out a way for maybe you can come and pick it up. But that's that. Certainly was thoughtful of him to think of us. But that's all it is. Okay. Now, the next thing on our agenda is the demolition delay bylaw. And this month, the only demolition issue is an old one. It was brought up to our attention first 3 years ago in 2017. A man named Anthony Arcari is going to tear down the birthplace of Governor Volpe at 259 to 267 Water Street. you may remember that the house was not originally on our list of significant sites. The Historical Commission added to it in 2010. Governor Volpe was born here in Wakefield, and many people in Wakefield residents are actually still related to him. And a resident at the time had a sign made for the property, and they had a little ceremony. I think it was about 20 years ago. It was Sam Benedetto. I don't know if any of you remember Sam, but since then, Mr. Arcari has purchased the property. He came before the Historical Commission and told us what he's going to do with it. And we did not oppose the demolition. It has taken him 3 years to get to the point where he's about to demolish it, and he has agreed to document the building, photographically document it, and to put a plaque on the building saying that, memorializing the fact that the governor was born in that location. So at this point, he is now in the process of taking his pictures, which he is going to take. He's taken the exterior pictures. He's also going to take 4 pictures of each room and put them on his CD and send them to us for safekeeping and for posterity. And he will go over the wording on the plaque with me. And I think it'll be a very simple plaque, similar to the one that was taken off of the building. Many relatives of the governor were very, very interested in this project. And in fact, I've received many calls this past week about it. But that's the status of it at this time. Mr. Arcari is, as far as I know, keeping up his end of the bargain with regard to the property. So anybody have anything they want to chime in about that? Any questions? Dan?
Yeah, I think he not only was he a governor, I believe he was the Secretary of Transportation.
Yeah.
And I believe an ambassador.
Yep, he was. He was Secretary of Transportation under Nixon, and he was an ambassador as well. So he was, and of course, we have the Volpe Library at the high school, which has a lot of artifacts from his life, and is a wonderful addition to the community. So you're right. You're absolutely right, Dan. Anything else on that?
Oh, what's the full address on that again?
It is 259 through 267 Water Street.
I'll go take a picture of it tomorrow and email it to you.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
Mr. Arcari has taken 4 pictures, which I actually have in an
Oh.
email here. So I'll forward that email to everybody so you can
Oh,
see what
okay.
he's done so far.
Thank you.
That's directly across the street from the liquor store.
S&M?
The entrance going into the Little League field.
All right, okay, I know where that is. Okay.
Yeah, the building is much changed from what it was originally. But anyway, yeah, that's the story with that. The next thing on our agenda is the old burying ground. I did a video, a Zoom history of the old burying ground a few weeks ago, just before Halloween. Jean went to it. I don't know if anybody else did. Jen did, okay. And probably we'll do that over again in the spring, again, if anybody wants to get up on the history of the old burying ground. But I was hoping to get, actually enlist an able-bodied volunteer or two to walk through the burying ground from time to time. I used to do this myself, at least twice a month, to see if anything was wrong or missing or anything like that, any stones that were upended. And at present, I just cannot I can't do the walking there at this time. So hopefully my knees will recover by the spring. But in the meantime, if there is anybody who would be willing to walk through from time to time and just snap a picture if you see anything that looks amiss.
I'd be happy to
appreciate
do that.
Would you, Jean? That
Sure.
would be great. That would be great.
Hopefully no trees got downed on anything.
Well, yeah,
I know there
yeah.
were a few trees that they cut up there.
There were a lot of trees and a lot of the gravestones were upended too. And we have lost so many of them over the years. When I was looking at old pictures and comparing them to the pictures of taken more recently, it is striking. And I really think we owe it to our community to make sure to try to have the DPW maintain that property and keep the gravestones in, if they've come out of the ground, they need to be reset. That's not for us to do. We used to try to do that, but it's really not the historical commission should not be like a workforce, not a manual labor force. We're not skilled in it. First of all, we're not trained in it. And the town has the DPW that should be able to take care of this. And they really need to take it seriously. So when there are things that are wrong, we needed to bring it to their attention in a timely fashion.
Okay, a few weeks ago, I don't think it was back that long, I saw the Department of Public Works in there cutting up a tree that had fallen down.
Well, yeah, a lot of trees fell down in that big storm. Yeah.
But
But-
I didn't see anyone resetting stones, and they probably wouldn't do that until spring anyway.
Well, it was not cold at the time that the storm
Oh,
took place.
no,
So, yeah, if they come up, they need to be reset.
Yeah.
Just how deep are those stones anyway? I know you see the top half, but how much is underground really?
Well, of course, all the stones are different. The oldest ones, those slate stones, for every part of the stone that you see, 2/3 again are underground.
Wow.
2/3?
2/3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you're only seeing 1/3 of it. But over time, a lot of them have broken already and been reset. So they're shorter than they originally were. But the ones over, certainly in the semicircle over there, they're mass. Some of them are massive, Dan. When we would be doing Old Burying Ground Preservation Days in May every year, the Historical Commission one year undertook to dig down in behind one in the semicircle. It was the gravestone of John Brown, who was quite personality in town in the 17th century. Very, very important. Actually signed the Indian deed. And his gravestone is very, very large. And it was tipping in a weird way. So we said, well, let's fix this. Well, we knew nobody was buried right there because those stones had been reset a couple of times. So it was safe for us to dig down and try to figure out. When we got to the bottom, we figured we could maybe try to straighten it out. I don't know if you remember Marcia Finney, who was a petite lady. Okay, so she was digging very earnestly, and she was actually in the hole, and you could barely see her head because that's how deep it was. And
Do you know how many stones are there, or a ballpark figure?
Pardon me?
Do you know how many grave sites are there?
Thousands were
In the
there.
old-
Were there originally, and we
But how
had
many now
we
then?
documented 1,154 markers
Wow.
at the time that we were documenting the gravestones.
Wow.
But
Because I would think with the technology of today, we could take a picture of one of those stones and somehow virtually keep that on record, that even if one was destroyed or something, we could have that in like a virtual, some kind of software that could do that. I'm sure there's some kind of scanning process you could do that.
Yes, and we have documented a lot of it, and certainly I'm really open to doing anything we can to document it further and preserve them more. But the point is that when they do come out of the ground, there are people that actually, like I've heard, and of people selling them at flea markets. So we need to like aggressively be sure that we are preserving those gravestones.
And even if we could get a picture of them, like on the Boston's North End in the old burial ground, some of those stones are reproductions. They were so badly destroyed, but they had a picture of the original, and reproductions were made.
Right,
That's
and
kind of what I'm talking about, something like that.
yeah, but just in terms of thinking about the old historical commission $2,000 annual budget, we might be able to do one stone a year. So let's try to keep the ones that we have.
Okay.
And I'd like you to think about this. The earliest burying ground was not at the one where we see right now. The earliest one was on the common. Hundreds of people are buried there in the earliest burying ground, starting in the 1640s. And it was used up until the 1770s. They were still burying people there. And those people are still there. I would really like to have a marker of some sort on the lower common near the bandstand that would just simply say this was the town's first burying ground. It's just a measure of respect for those first settlers. I think this could be a controversial thing, although it shouldn't be. So think it over. I'm going to bring it up again later on, probably in January or February, because I really think that this would be a worthwhile project for us. Maybe if they could just do a small planting of some sort, a couple of bushes and a little sign near the bandstand, approximately where we know the old graveyard was. Okay.
Well, what would the sign say? Something like, this was the original Wakefield burial ground?
Yeah, it would say
Something simple.
very simple, very simple, with a couple of nice little bushes, and that would be tended by the DPW, not by us.
And the sign might also say the approximate date the dates that was a burial ground.
Well, it could, yeah. But we know it was from the 1640s. We know the last person that was buried there was like 1772.
Oh,
And all of those people are still there.
so we could merely say during the 1600s and the 1700s, or something to that effect.
Something to that effect. But anyway, keep it in mind. Okay. All right. Moving on to other matters. Remember last month we talked about the signs that Bronwyn Della Volpe had recommended to us? Sent you their picture. And we had discussed it and thought about those signs and how they would have an application in town. We didn't really think they would probably work out that well, but I said I would get more information if she knew the vendor of the sign, or where it was used, and an approximate cost of the sign. And she had indicated that in her letter, her initial letter, that she knew of funding sources for it. So I sent her a note and asked her all of those things. And it turns out that that sign that we have the picture of is in Serbia. So we're probably not going to be able to get that original vendor, should we want to put up such a sign. And she didn't actually have an idea of prospective donors. She thought we could ask for donations or apply to preservation organizations. But so that was my homework to do. So I did it. And moving on from that, Dan, you were doing research into Betts Field, weren't you? How's that coming?
Not too well.
No?
It just seems like, you'd think that would be in books or something, the dedication of it. And like I think you found out, it was 1934 or 35.
Yeah.
It's a WPA project. And that's the last records I see of it in the annual town report. So I don't know if they really had a dedication, but I'm saying we go down here, we call it Veterans Field. And like this last week, we were looking for a place to have a Veterans Day ceremony. And I said, how about Veterans Field? And I'm looking there and I'm saying, there's no memorial there. There's nothing that really, other than that flagpole that's near the sidewalk. And I remember as a kid, center field at Veterans Field had some granite steps, I think like 3 steps that went up, and they took those out as a safety reason. People playing softball would be tripping over it. But I would like to get some kind of a memorial put up there. And whether I can do that through the Veterans Advisory Board, which I'll bring up as maybe a project too. But I'd like to look in something like that we can have a little ceremony down there or something, calling it Veterans Field. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think, Dan, that we could find out more through a search of the National Archives, because all the WPA projects were documented in some way there. And I started to do that, but then I got overwhelmed by other stuff and didn't.
I think the library has somebody that's in charge of like reference resources. Is
Right.
that Jeff? And
Yep.
maybe could look up something on that. But
Yeah.
everything is closed. I don't know who you could go to now. I
Yeah.
don't know if the library is even open.
Well, it's staffed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's staffed.
Yeah. Yeah. I was able to find some arrows, kind of like virtual arrows pointing me to the National Archives, but researching that is a whole thing. So I'll try to look into it again, but I think it's a great idea for you to find out more about it. Maybe if we could find the plans or whatnot, because we know the land was purchased. I mean, they were forward thinking at the end of the 20s toward acquiring all that lakefront property, including the Hartshorn House and Hartshorn's Meadow, which is Betts Field.
Because it was originally supposed to be a playground, a ball field, and believe it or not, a skating rink.
Yeah.
So they had big plans for it, but it never happened.
Yeah, it would be great to find out more information about that. So we'll put that on our list to push along too. Now, we have been contacted by one of the town council, Jonathan Chines, who's in charge of coming up with a vision and value statement for the town. And we are one of 13, I think, organizations or little town bodies that have been invited to participate. So I'm just letting you know that they're not going to do anything about it until into December.
Has he given you any sort of idea of what they've already come up with?
I don't think they've done anything yet.
Okay,
It was all preliminary. They were starting to work on like asking like who was gonna represent various organizations, including us and like the school committee. I mean, all kinds of people, the Chamber of Commerce, and it was just like a and then the whole pandemic took place. But so they're kind of reviving it in
I
December.
think it was gonna be quite large, a committee, something like 15 or more, like
Yeah.
the branding and wayfaring kind of.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, I'll keep you posted when I find out more about it. And now, Jean, you had something that you wanted to discuss.
Yes, I wrote a letter to the item. I was upset at what they want to do at Lake Quantapowhat, build all those tall buildings. And I've been in touch with Jim Scott and the president of the Friends of Lake Quantapowhat, and they are suggesting, after I made the suggestion, that is there some way we could get involved in that because of the historical significance of the lake. There are signs all over town objecting to the big development that they want to put in there. And all the development that's been put in there so far, except on the north end of the lake, is only 1 or 2 stories high. And by putting big buildings up there, that's going to take the focus away from the lake. And they would welcome anyone that would want to help them reject this proposal of the new development. And I'm just wondering how you all would feel about it. Hello?
Yeah. Well, Dan, you know all the news, so tell us where
Well-
that project stands.
I don't know where it stands now, but everything is just a projection that they're gonna build, I think, what, 480 condos or apartments up there?
Yeah,
And
but now is what they
They
want.
already got the approval, so I'm not the approval, but I think they've gone past the planning board.
Well, it's been at town meeting and the planning board is looking into it. But the developer not only wants to put those buildings at the north end of the lake, but all those buildings right next to the road, all that development near the inn and everything. They want to redo that too.
Lakeside Office Park, I think.
Yeah, Lakeside Office Park. So if they get that way, we're going to look like Malden and Melrose. And it's going to take, you're not going to really be able to enjoy the lake that much.
Well, I think they were trying to get an article at town meeting in, but it was too late for the project.
Yes, that's
The
correct.
planning board could only have 1 meeting and they didn't think they had discussed enough on it. So, but I think the developer has the rights now for either the next 2 years or 8 years to do something there, but I think they're kind of grandfathered in now.
Well, to some degree, but Bill Conley, who's the president of the Friends of Lake Quantapowhat, gave me the name of the developer, Brian Thompson, who's an architect. And his opinion, Bill's opinion, was that if we could maybe go to some of the meetings when they're held, when the time comes, and get to know him, he might be somewhat more understanding than the lawyer that's representing Cabot.
I know that when they went to the planning board, they did not need approval on whatever it was that they presented to the planning board. So
Right.
now it goes on to the Board of Appeals.
That's right.
And so I
I think it's
that-
the density, wasn't it the density and the number of parking spaces that they were planning on putting in?
I don't know.
The only thing I heard was the number of apartments, and it didn't mention parking, except it would be away from the lake, but if there's 400 and some apartments, there would be at least that many parking spaces.
I think the way they were gonna develop it was, I think, 2 buildings, and the parking was gonna be in the center of those buildings, so you would not see the parking. You'd only see parking for maybe 50 spaces for delivery vehicles. But that's the way I think they were gonna do it. But, you know, big developers come in, and at first they were talking 600. And they said, well, we'll do everybody a favor and we'll knock it down to 480. You know, they were probably talking 480 to begin with.
Oh, of course. That's what they always do. They ask for more than they expect, and the town negotiates and brings it down, and they think, oh, everyone's happy, but we got what we wanted in the first place.
So I think this is outside of the realm of the historic commission. And if people want to get involved in the effort, they need to do it as an individual person and not part of the board.
Well, I see, you know, Lake Quannapowitt is the most historic thing in the whole town. And don't we represent things besides what was made by man?
I mean, even still, the lake is still going to be there. The pathways for walking are still going to be there. That building is currently owned by a company that has sold it to a developer. So they now own it. So I just don't think we have anything to do with that. And I'm not sure where if the lake is part of our jurisdiction. It is a resource to the town, but I'm not sure that I would put it in the category of a historic preservation, unless they wanted to tar over it.
Unless they wanted to what?
Tar over the entire thing.
Oh.
Well,
we
one
don't-
time they were going to build the high school in the Hartshorns Cove.
True.
I've seen a drawing of that.
True.
Yeah,
I think that the lake is actually, I think, owned by the state. I don't know how much they own or can say about it, but it is a great pond of the state.
it is. It is. And
It
I
is
don't
free
know. I was trying to remember if it is listed as part of the National Register of Historic Places. Because if it were, I think that we would be, the Historical Commission would be within our jurisdiction to, just as far as being a historic landscape. To write a letter urging, you know, restraint in development so that it wasn't overwhelmed by building nearby.
Well, I think that's what they're asking us and other organizations to do. Just support keeping the lake the way it is. We might make a difference.
Fran? What do you think of that?
Well, I think you would have to, if you could find out whether or not it is recognized as a national treasure. I think you're mixing the scope of our work with something else. I'm not saying that it's not an important cause. I just don't think as a board, it is part of our charter.
What does everyone else think?
Do you know of any waterway or lake that is actually listed as a historic? I mean, would in Concord there, the river, is that historically significant?
Well, the north, you know, where the bridge is, the North Bridge?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, so I believe there's a park, and then the park is part of a, you know, state-owned area that's maintained.
Right, and when it's even in the middle of a national park, it's in the middle of Minuteman National
That's
Historical.
right.
But what do you other quiet people think?
I'll go. My my personal opinion is that I'm very much against the development. However, I'm trying to figure out where the historical commission's role could be, or if there's any sort of weight or any sort of jurisdiction, or like where we could kind of hang our hat on in order to have weight in helping kind of change the position or the development. I guess my understanding would be is if there was something that was within our jurisdiction, we would have already been made aware of that through permits being triggered. So I think that if there is something with the lake where like what Fran says, we have some sort of jurisdiction, then I'm for trying to put forth some sort of effort or letter or what have you, if we do have something along those lines, to pose our kind of collective position with the development. Otherwise, I'm not necessarily sure it would be efforts that would come to fruition. If that's not the right word, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I think all they're really asking for us is not to get overly involved, but if somehow there was a letter or some sort of notice saying that the Historical Commission approves keeping the lake as natural as possible and objecting to overdevelopment, I think in a sense, that's probably all we could do anyway. And maybe that's all that would please them. That's
Is it
just my opinion.
is it something where they're looking for maybe a history of the lake or a history around the lake to kind of help their cause that they're looking for?
I don't think
Okay.
so. I don't think that that's what they're, and
They're
on
asking.
top of it,
Okay.
I think we own that, the town owns that land. We
that, I
we sold the
I
lease
never
of it
understood that.
for $1 for 95 years or 99 years. in
Yeah,
1950.
1959, I think they got it for a 99-year lease.
Yeah,
But how can they be selling this over the last few times to different people if it's just like a lease and 99 years? What happens? It was 1959, I'm almost positive, that they signed the lease.
it's
But,
pretty,
you know, I can see, like Gene was saying, sending a letter and possibly sending that letter to the Board of Appeals, because that's the next step up now. And they can, you know, put conditions or something on the property. If we can't do anything, at least they can put some kind of conditions on it. And maybe send a letter to the chairman of the zoning Board of Appeals.
well, maybe with a copy to the item.
Yes, yeah, we need to get it publicized.
Because I think one of the reasons the zoning Board of Appeals can deny something is if it's out of character with the existing neighborhood, or it's out of, you know, character with the whole town of Wakefield as far as the lake.
Right. That's a good point, Dan.
And when you consider all those apartments, they're not going to be doing a lot of shopping in Wakefield, because right behind them is 128, and there are shops on the other side of 128. Is how we're going to suffer, is all these students going into the Wakefield schools, which is going to make us build new school buildings, and I think it's going to be a burden to the town. Also, another reason I object to it is, if you remember the old manse that was torn down recently, the cops were going there all the time. The neighbors would call, the kids were up there fooling around and damaging the property. And I just think the children in these apartments will be running into the lake and swimming and digging up and ruining some of the bushes and things adjacent to the lake, right on its shore.
Well, I don't know how many are these apartments going to be, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. Usually they say, just like all the other condos in the town of Wakefield, they've said they aren't going to add to the school population. You know, who knows? I don't know. But I think they want this development as kind of a people working in Boston, that they can commute out onto North Ave to the commuter rail station, go into Boston and work. And I think they were going to actually have a shuttle bus going back and forth from one of the plans that I saw.
Okay, I never saw any of those plans.
But I know there's probably a little veering off a little bit, and let us go back to more of the historical commission agenda. But I've lived in one of those apartments where they've had the shuttle that goes in and out of Boston. There are children in those apartment complexes. I've lived in the apartment complex very similar to what they're proposing, and I've done some research, and there is evidence that the apartment complexes across the US have a greater portion of young children and students than they were seeing a decade or two ago. That's just what I've been curious about. But I know that I know Nancy probably wants to get back to a different agenda. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. But that's personally why I'm against those developments, because I've lived in one of those developments and I know kind of the composition of those apartments complexes and how kind of how it works with the shuttle and everything. So based on that, in my experience, I do see a big influx of children coming in. I do see a lot more traffic. And that's just my personal opinion why I'm against the development, as well as obviously all the lake stuff, but just kind of thinking.
I believe on the bottom floor of that complex was going to be a restaurant or some retail too, so.
But with that many apartments, remember, it's at the head of the lake, so there won't be any for poor people, subsidized apartments. They're all going to be luxury apartments overlooking the lake. And the people that can afford them certainly can afford families. So I sense there are going to be a lot of kids around there. And I mean, I wouldn't blame the kids for playing in the lake. They're just kids. But it's going to be a burden nonetheless.
But I think we're more concerned with as Dan said, the character out of character with the community,
Right.
in a sense. But as Fran has said very well, this kind of stretches the bounds of where we might go with the historical commission. So I am wondering if I were to find out a little bit more about whether or not indeed Lake Quannapowitt is on the National Register of Historic Places, and then draft a letter and send it to all of you for your thoughts as to whether you feel that it's warranted to send, and give feedback.
Yes.
I think that's a good start. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. And in that way, at least we show that we're supporting reduced development. I can live with that.
I just think, Jean, you have to be careful of how you say this, because it's not our jurisdiction to reduce development in the town. It's our jurisdiction to look at historic structures and try to prevent them from being torn down. So it's a fine line, I think, that you have to walk when you're putting on your historic commission hat.
I agree with you, but I think all the development is tearing down our natural resource, the lake and the surrounding land adjacent to it.
I think we're here to preserve structures and places, and I consider the lake a place.
Yes.
And preserve the character of our community.
Right.
And like I
Yeah.
said, the Board of Appeals is that next step, and we can get something off to them, and they're gonna have to probably have conditions for this whole project if it goes through, and they can set those conditions.
Okay. So everyone is amenable to that kind of little baby step to, I'll look into it a little bit and draft a letter and send it to you guys, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Everybody good with that?
Yep, I'm
Yes.
fine.
I
Okay.
know this, go ahead. I know there's a lot of people on the Board of Appeals that are thinking the same way about development in Wakefield, and maybe this will give them something else to try and get some good conditions on the project, if it goes through. And yes, not only is it that project, it's Lakeside Office Park, and I worry more about Lakeside Office Park than the other part.
Really, I don't think I would cry to see the end of Lakeside Office Park, personally.
Yeah, but they could be, they could put a hotel in there too.
Yeah, they could. They could. Yep. Okay.
On North Avenue, there's a brick building across from all those parking spaces next to the railroad track. They're redeveloping that building. It was a business building, and it looks like it's being made into apartments. And I wonder if that's on the National Register.
That's pretty new. Yeah, I think they're putting 12 condo units in there.
Oh, okay.
Nancy, do you know where he's talking about? It's
No, I
between
don't.
maybe Yale and Avon. Is it on the
Avon,
corner of Avon?
yeah.
Isn't it that big brick building where the optical house is?
No,
No,
it's not
next
that
one up.
one. It's the one near Dunkin' Donuts. It's up the street from the optical building.
One block further up, Nancy.
Yeah,
Oh. I think there was a business of some kind in there. Is
I
it
think
brick?
so too, yeah.
No.
Is it brick? Okay. It's definitely not on the
It's
National
it's
Register.
right on the corner of Avon Street. There's Boats and Motors on one side, on
Uh-huh.
the other, a brick building.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I remember it now. No, it's
And that's
not.
all approved and going in, so.
No,
Okay.
no. Okay. Did anybody else have anything else?
Regarding the tour of the cemetery, I will try and do that a couple of times a month. And if I see something that looks different, I'll take a photo and send it to everybody.
That would be great, Jean. I'd appreciate it.
All right.
This is Kathlena. Sorry, I was driving. I've been running late. I will also go to the cemetery every once in a while and take photos.
Thank you. Thank
Great.
you, Kathleen. Okay, well, there being nothing else, we can adjourn the meeting. If we can have a motion to adjourn.
And when's our next meeting?
Oh, that's a good point. Is the 4th,
So it should be the 23rd, but I think we were gonna try to do it the 16th instead.
oh yeah, we are definitely not going to do the 23rd.
Oh, definitely not.
Not that there's gonna be much Christmas going around here.
Do you want to do a week earlier, the 16th?
Yes, and if we have no urgent business, we'll
can
put
get
it
that.
off to the following month.
Okay.
Okay, so would you like me to make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
Yes, I would.
All right, I'll make that motion to adjourn at 8:23.
And second, please.
I second it.
All in favor?
I-
Aye.
See you all next month and have a very happy Thanksgiving.
And the same to all of
You
you.
too.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Happy
Okay,
Thanksgiving. Bye.
bye.
Bye-bye.